coming to you raw and unscripted. Beaming across Ontario and beyond to places like Pickle Lake, Greensboro, King City, and Cornwall. This is the Real Hickson Real Estate Podcast. Whether you're listening on your commute or putting on your suit, whether it's your morning stroll or you're on patrol, you just finished prayer or dropped the kids at daycare, you're in the bar, your car, or listening with the bathroom door ajar, near or far, this is the Jess and Giro Show. We're grateful for flattery and prone to inaccuracies. This is your guide to Toronto culture, people, events, news, but most importantly, real estate talk. Yes, hello folks. Jess and I are back.
Hello.
Yes, say hello. We're back for another Express Advice for Q2 of 2025.
Spring is maybe here.
Spring is like maybe here, yeah.
Knocking on the door.
Listen, Jess, I thought we were working overtime on this whole global warming thing and that it was making our winters better.
Yeah.
At the same time, making my parents back in Australia, making their summers horrible and unbearable.
Yeah, there's a lot of...
But they have a lot of beaches to cool off, so I'm not going to feel too bad for them.
Sure.
The least we could get is a little bit extra warmth. Listen, if the start of March was like that was the end of winter, I could live here forever, Jess. That's not too bad.
Yeah. No, it's the fake spring one, and then fake
we were
spring
out in
two.
we were out in shorts, we were out in shirts at like 12 degrees, 15 degrees. Back home, we would be like rugged up.
Joe was ready for a patio.
I was ready for a patio. They should do like, they have these restrictions on the patios in the city. They should just like have special day passes. For the people.
Yeah, for the people.
The people. Okay, so here we are. This episode is Express Advice, Q2 2025. And I want to entitle it, Jess, We Are Only Certain of One Thing. ... The uncertain.
Oh.
We are in uncertain times, Jess.
In more ways than one.
More ways than one. Unprecedented times, as per usual. Mm-hmm. Over the that seems to be the trend these days.
5 years of it.
I think 2020 came, and that was kind of it for
precedented time.
Yeah, certainty. It's been quite uncertain since then. Elections.
I would love a precedented time.
I would love precedented times. Yes. And we also have, we may have teased in the advertisement, we have a bonus, Jess. A bonus at the end of this podcast.
So you better stick around.
Listen, it's not going to be super long. We're just trying to keep it like 30, 35 minutes, something like that. Yeah. Just give some quick advice for absolutely everybody. And at the end, as I said, we're going to give you a special little announcement, an extra special announcement. Because we did make a social announcement over the weekend. For anyone that didn't catch that, you can just going to have to go on the Instagram maybe right now as you listen to this.
Follow us.
But we have extra information, which is extra privileged, which is going to reward all of our listeners for listening to our show.
From start to finish.
So please don't.
Just like fast
they're just going to skip ahead.
Yeah,
they're just going to do that. Okay, yes. So what's happening in the market? ?
That's a great question. There's a lot happening.
It's super mixed right now.
So many different markets in different.
That's right. We are going to go through bit by bit. Just to give it a little bit of context, we've obviously had now the provincial election results. Mm-hmm. So, I think just in years of elections, people are just like, oh, let's just wait and see. Yeah. We saw this last time.
Yep.
Because we wanted to hear last time, 4 years ago, it was actually, if you remember, to do with like the mortgage rules and all that kind of stuff as well. Yeah. So now we have the federal election coming up.
End of April.
What's the date? Do you remember?
28th.
28th of April.
Yeah.
And I think hold that thought, because I think that's going to fuel a couple different markets. But let's get into it. The best advice, express advice, let's start with the renters on the tenant side. Mm-hmm. So in rentals, the market is more favored towards tenants.
Yeah, definitely.
I said this last time. It's even more favored, I think, now.
Yeah, especially the condo market.
The concentration of the activity is downtown. The other thing is there are still a lot of projects that are being finished.
Mm-hmm. Lots of new
And so really, here's the trade-off. Because, in Concord, for example, which is, East Woodbridge, and Jess is like, it's not called Concord. I'm like, it has to be now. I made a very good point. There's so many, there's the VMC, the Vaughan Metro Centre, for example. There's all these condos going in. It's a whole new hub. Balzac's is there, Jess.
There's everything
if
there.
If Balzac's is there, it's legit.
Okay. That's what they should write on
that's right. That's right. But all that to say that a lot of new buildings coming out. When new buildings coming out, you get a lot of new units, both for sale and for lease. Now, obviously, if there's enough of them, they start undercutting each other. If there's not enough demand, they start undercutting each other. But essentially, it's a good option for tenants to move, and kind of what the discount you're getting is actually the fact that, okay, here's the trade-off. It's still new.
Yeah, there's some construction potentially around
the units are usually done.
Yeah.
Obviously, every building's at different stages, but maybe sometimes the hallways aren't carpeted yet, for example, or painted.
Yeah, or there's some exterior construction that still has to be done.
That's right. For the most part, it's usually just the amenities that are not finished.
Yeah.
But, in Canada, half the amenities aren't, used seasonally anyways, especially in the colder months.
Yeah.
And you would be having to wait for pools to open and all that kind of stuff, especially outdoor stuff.
Yeah, but it's worth the discount because sometimes it's quite significant.
That's right. Now, the other trade-off is really you don't know what a building's like until you get into it. But, the positive side of that is brand new unit. You don't have to inherit anyone else's scuffs and marks.
Yeah, never
and
been
all that kind of
lived in.
stuff.
Yeah. And if there's any issues, then they get dealt with pretty quickly. Because the builder can take it.
That's the other positive. Is for the first year, you don't have to rely on the landlord to say, hey, this is broken, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. They usually even would have property managers on site that can send trades to your door within a couple of days just to fix things. Because essentially the landlord has a 1-year warranty on absolutely everything in that unit. Yeah. And, it makes the things a little bit easier. So that's the trade-off. On top of that, if you're looking kind of outside of the GTA, further out, again, that's a little bit even easier. I've been telling a lot of my clients to be looking at 2 bedrooms to share. That's been the main strategy. Mm-hmm. Just because we have been faced with historical high rental prices. Now, again, though, that has been coming down. So things are cooling and chilling and getting easier, and it's still worthy to complain about it, but, it is getting more and more in tenants' favors. So apart from that, let's look on the landlord side of things, Jess.
Yeah.
What are you seeing?
Yeah, well, there is still movement, and they're always going to have tenants looking for places, especially if they're well priced, if they're nice units, and if they're in good locations. Yep.
Yeah. So, again, concentrating in the downtown core, then around the city, then, it just depends on the different hubs that exist outside of the cities.
But you might have to lower your expectations a bit on price.
Exactly. So if you can manage your expectations, you're still going to rent it, and it's still going to rent it well, and there's a good chance you get solid tenant coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. It may cost you a little bit more per month than you had hoped, but that's not forever.
Yeah, exactly. The tenant pool has lightened in that regard, but there is still activity. It's just that the listing price needs to be realistic. Mm-hmm. Now, what's fueling all of this? As we spoke about last time, the immigration has been slowing, and that's really come to the forefront, especially in these elections. Mm-hmm. A lot of questions raised about immigration. Yeah. What are the positives? What are the negatives? And I'll leave it to you, dear listener, to decide for yourself how you feel about that. Because there is arguments for both sides, believe it or not.
Yeah, and we are not a political podcast.
We're not a political podcast, so we won't be getting into it. In terms of a context of where the market's at, we're really peaked now. Obviously, not a lot of people like to move in the wintertime. Mm-hmm. We do have a couple of big moving dates, like January 1st or like March 1st. Yeah. But essentially, we are seeing a lot more people move now. Yeah. It's for the school year, for example. And also, people just like to move when it's warm.
And I don't blame them.
I don't blame them. I do not blame them.
Yeah, it's not easy to do it in snow.
No, it isn't. It isn't. First-time home buyers, Jess.
First-time home buyers.
2025. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The year of the first-time home buyer. Why do I say that? Because if we look at the cycle like of the last, like let's say from 2021 to now, let's look at a 4-year cycle as in like an election term. Right now is the best prices we've seen. And also like we're getting a lot closer to the interest rates that we've seen.
Yeah, the interest rates for first-time home buyers, especially because if it's less than 20% down, they're hovering in the high 3s. Like they are getting to normalized numbers. Like they are.
Yes, and I mean the anomaly was of course 2020 and 2021.
Yeah, of course.
You're never gonna see that again.
No, you can't expect
it. It would be lovely to see that again, but the only reason we would be seeing that again is because there's something
the world
crazy
is burning
which
down.
is like the negative. We don't want that.
Yeah, like and it's an extreme circumstance.
Yeah.
Hopefully they start coming into the mid 3s and hang around there. That's kind of the best case scenario.
Yeah, I mean, get ready for the uncertainty thing is, we have to look at the economy this year. And we've entered into this like weird twilight zone of tariffs. Like they're on, they're off, they're not coming now. Like what? I can't even keep up with the latest.
No, we'll see what happens next week.
But basically, it's across the board. It's not across the board. This is really like a day by day thing, and it's just getting used to this uncertainty. Now, if there was enough tariffs long enough, we've been talking about this for a little while now, then we would have to look at the economy.
Yeah.
Fortunately, as it stands, before entering into any of this stuff, Canada's economy was doing quite well. Mm-hmm. Now, yes, it wasn't booming, but we had this soft landing with interest rates. So we're kind of already at a good point. Now, will the interest rates continue to drop? Without any of this new information, we were expecting another 2 rate cuts this year, projected.
Yeah.
So we already had one. There could be another one in April, I think is the next one.
The next one's April, yeah.
Yeah. So, how much they cut it by, any of this kind of stuff. We look to our neighbours to the south. They're looking at the opposite problem. They didn't quite hit their landing. Mm-hmm. It was going to take them maybe another 6 months to a year to hit that like we did. And now they're looking at inflation. They're going the other way. We're not going to get too much into it, but unfortunately, it does fuel our economy. Mm-hmm. It does dictate our economy. If you ask me, I think this could be a positive thing. Without getting too political, it's nice to look to Europe, Australia, our other dependable allies to create new or more inroads.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a silver lining.
There is a silver lining. So we could also be seeing people leaving the States. This could include people with skills, a lot of skills, which is really what Canada is looking for.
Yeah.
Or what we should be looking for is immigration with skills.
Yeah.
Because we have been seeing recently, unfortunately, immigration with not a lot of skills, which has been, it's good in some regards, not good in others. So anyways, we won't go too much into that. Maybe we should have Sean again on here to see what he thinks about the economy at the moment. But either way, that's kind of what we're looking for. And what that could mean is if we are having this immigration, we could see a jump in sales and we could see a jump in activity. The market's definitely not dead. It's mixed. And for first-time home buyers, you really don't have to worry about selling. That's the number one thing.
Yeah, you can
time it.
Yeah.
You can time it. Now, what other opportunities do you have right now? Well, you have the time to, depending on what you're buying, you still usually have the time to see a few different properties, to maybe have a second showing. You don't have to compete most of the time. Yeah. We are starting to see more offer presentations.
Yeah.
It just really depends on the agent and the strategy, the kind of property, where it is, the price, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at. I'm still seeing the old silly $1 strategy, Jess.
Yeah, well, that will never make sense to me. But.
Listeners, so every now and then there are agents who believe it's a smart idea to list for $1. And does it get attention? Of course it does. What it basically means is the buyer's agent have to figure out what it might cost. But realistically, I could easily filter that out without even realizing.
Yeah.
Like if my client has a budget of say like $900, I'm filtering maybe $650 to $950, let's say.
Just
give it a
so
big
you
range.
don't,
But guess what? I'm not seeing that dollar. And maybe that property did
meet the criteria
for that range.
Yeah,
Anyways,
yeah.
That's a whole nother thing. We won't chastise other agents too much on this podcast. The one other thing, guys, I want to tell you about is I have created, which is super, super needed, a first-time homebuyer planner, Jess.
It's great, actually.
And Jess proofed it. Mm-hmm. Now, I have sent this out to a lot of clients that could meet that kind of criteria just to get feedback on it. Mm-hmm. What are you liking about it? What are you not liking about it? What I'm trying to do is get people thinking, because really there's not a ton of resources out there for first-time home buyers. What we find is by the time we're working with people, we're basically having to educate them from the beginning.
Yeah, if they've never experienced it before, they've never been around this type of real estate, like your parents never taught you.
That's right. And there's
would you know?
There's a lot of things you can be doing a year before, 3 years before even.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be when you're ready to sign on the dotted line.
Yep. Just to give you an idea of concepts, to give you an idea of a savings goal, to give you an idea of what things actually cost. And I'll just quickly mention, the first thing I've noticed so far is a lot of these would-be first-time home buyers seem to think that a condo that they would be buying is probably $150K more than it actually is right now.
Yeah, they don't realize that things have changed quite a bit recently.
And this is, we've talked about this issue previously with, when people come to sell, or landlords when they list their place for rent. They have this memory of a couple of years ago, these prices.
Multiple offers. And even I had tenants that were looking, they're like, oh, we're going to have to compete and all this kind of stuff? Yeah. Because 2 years, that's what they have to do. Yeah, if you were in that market a couple years
ago.
No,
you don't have to do that. Yeah. So it's all about, and we're obviously trying to update people as we go.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's not a ton of people that are following our every words and getting the play-by-play of what's happening in the market. I'm sure a lot of people out there that are just checking in here and there. I mean, that's what the stats show us anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
So, trying to get the information out there. And importantly, when we think it's a good idea to do something, we'll tell you.
Yeah.
We're honest.
Always.
We've done it ourselves, and we want this kind of good advice for other people.
Yeah, and there's no bad questions.
There's no bad questions. There's no stupid questions. I always say, a stupid question's only a question that you already know the answer to, Jess.
That's nice.
Do you like that?
Yeah, I do. That's good. Mm-hmm.
You never heard that before?
I think I've heard you say it.
Right. But now you're acknowledging on this podcast here and now that you like something that I've said before?
Yeah, I won't give you too much credit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on to upgraders. Mm-hmm. You've got the place. So now we're in a different ballgame. Yeah. So you have to sell as well.
Yeah, which can be complicated, obviously.
Okay. Question mark. Is there any way that you could carry that property if you rented it out as well as bought a new property?
Yeah.
Some people are in the fortunate position to do this. Yeah. Not everybody.
Yeah. Or can you hold it for a small amount of time? Can you hold it for a month or two? Can you carry both properties?
Yes. If not, the general advice, depending on what you have and what you need to get, is probably to sell first, especially if you're in a condo. I think if you're open on the buy side, there's a good chance you're not going for your absolute dream home. You're still looking for the next step. Maybe you get that backyard. Maybe you get closer to work or to family. You get that extra bedroom or you're getting a basement now or, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah.
If you have an open filter on that side and you're able to sell and know exactly what you're going to get for it, and you give it, a little bit extra time on the sell side to give yourself a chance to go and buy something, then that's usually what you should be doing. In very rare circumstances, it might make sense for you to buy first.
Yeah, if you have a specific need.
Yeah.
Or a specific pocket that there's not usually.
And that's basically what the market's doing right now.
Yeah.
Is specific pockets. In a city, there's some pockets that listings very rarely come out, or maybe they've hit a price range that everyone's jumping on them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why it would be very much case by case basis.
Exactly. But if you were to buy first, okay, cool. You work out the rough numbers of what you could sell for. Okay, obviously not a guaranteed number, but you work it out with a mortgage broker. You go to buy first, cool. You don't have to settle on that side. It's very specific, etc., etc. Then you give yourself a little bit extra time. So maybe instead of a 60-day closing, you give it like a 90-day closing, which is like fairly permissible at this time.
To have a nice buffer.
Yeah. And then that means you give yourself enough time to sell, essentially. Of course, always a risk, but it has worked for my clients in the past.
Yeah.
And it will continue to work for other people.
Yeah.
Now, just remembering what you are buying is most likely going to be cheaper relative to what you sell for.
Yeah.
Like, to give it a good example, I was thinking about this. Let's say that a detached home is 10% more expensive than a semi-detached, for example.
Yeah.
Right? You want that backyard and you want that basement, full basement, or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Let's say that going back to like the 80s, the difference between a semi and a detached, you and I talk about this all the time in terms of what our parents were doing or whatever.
Family members. Yeah.
Family members.
Yeah.
And let's say the difference between $300,000 for a semi, okay, in the late 80s, the difference between that and a detached.
That's generous. They were not 300,000 per semi.
Okay, I'm just using a round number.
Okay.
But it's kind of, I don't know, like
that's
200, 250.
not even.
Okay, fine. Let's just use a round number of 300,000.
Sure.
And let's say the detached is an extra 10% or even 20%.
Okay.
You're now looking at a gap of between 300K, 350, 360K.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now we scale that up to what the current day prices are.
Yeah. It's a big difference.
So your townhouse is like 1.1. You could be jumping to a detached even at 1.3. Right? In, depending on the market.
Yeah, in the area, yeah.
Now that's a 200K difference. I could tell you that in the peak, a couple of years back, you could be getting a townhouse for like 1.2, 1.250, but detached was at 1.8.
Yeah.
600K difference.
It was a much harder jump to make.
Now, how was that possible back then? Well, as we mentioned before,
rates were
the
lower.
interest rates were quite low, but after 5 years, the interest rate changes, or 3 years, whatever.
But also the qualification process has changed significantly as well.
Yeah.
The banks were giving money a lot easier.
No, for sure.
A few years ago.
But like, consider that yes, okay, you had that crazy rate, whatever, but you're dating the rate, Jess.
Yeah.
You're marrying the price.
House. Yeah.
Until you move out, that price is going to be staying there forever. And you do
that's
like
why a lot of people are offloading their homes right now, because they're coming up on a mortgage renewal for a property that they can no longer afford with the current rates.
That's right. Renewals, they're refinancing potentially. Yeah, there's a little bit of hurt in the market. But again, we're looking, from the perspective of first-time home buyers and upgraders. So the opportunities are there, guys. Now, how do we see this all panning out? Well, again, we could see a pop after the election results that come in April, because technically, people just want that certainty.
To know for sure, yeah.
And is it a little bit more certainty than it was last week or the last month? If the answer is yes, then there's a good chance people are going to start to make moves.
Yeah, but we haven't had like an extreme market yet.
No.
We said it was going to be maybe in the fall, and that didn't happen, and then the spring. There's movement, but it has
There's really movement now. Like we are seeing multiple offers again.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say it's hot.
No, it's not crazy.
Yeah, it's good.
It's good. It's balanced.
Yeah,
it's a lot more balanced than it's been,
which is nice to see in a lot of ways.
So from upgraders, we're going to go to new build and new construction, which is so interesting. And I've said this last time, I believe, like, it's in the last 5 years, there's been very little moments where I've recommended pre-construction or new construction. Now, granted, we got new construction for our townhouse.
Yeah.
And we got it at a time which was pretty good timing. Obviously, we're out in Vaughan. It's a little bit different to like downtown core.
Of course.
But we took advantage of that. And, we are seeing the market really flipped on that. So, like, there is the bad and there is the good. Some projects, this is the bad. Some projects are being delayed. Appraisals coming in lower. This is for someone that maybe maybe they have their eye on a pocket like you did, Jess. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're looking for a specific lifestyle. Like obviously brand new is great. And it really is. Brand new is great. It comes with a few like teething problems. But at the same time, you have warranties. It's not being lived in. You don't have to inherit anyone's... Again, same as we were talking about pre-construction for condos. You don't have to inherit anyone's silly little renovations or find any surprises in the walls.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's always a positive. It depends on what your needs are. If you need longer, you want like a stretched out deposit structure.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it. If you were to close in a year, like you're putting down, and obviously, as you said, depending on the deposit structure, if you have the cash right now for that deposit structure or over the next year, and you're like, hey, in a year's time, I can't quite get a mortgage right now, or maybe you can, but in a year's time, the rates could be lower.
Yeah.
And your mortgage could be even better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a fit for lots of people for new construction. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just, I mean, we've seen ebbs and flows in that. But that's like new home sales in more rural pockets they're still selling because they're affordable. Like if people can afford it, they're going to buy it.
I mean, yeah, it's really all depending on the push and pull factors.
Yeah. If your life can be east of Pickering, Ajax, and you like that area, there are opportunities there. There's tons of new development happening out in those ways. But
well, I've been saying this for many years now. Coming from Sydney, where it's not really normal to live like right in the city, it's like it makes more sense, and it's more normalized to live out in the outer suburbs.
Yeah,
and commute to the city if you have to.
Yeah, well, there's GO train access.
Now there's a lot more hubs outside of the GTA.
Yeah. And it's all about lifestyle. If you can make it work for you, like there's no reason not to.
Now, granted, Sydney's rail system, for example, although we don't really have a subway, but it's quite a heavily integrated inner city and outer city rail system.
Yeah.
And bus system. It's pretty robust. Mm-hmm. Actually, it's pretty impressive. Comparing that to here, they're obviously working on the LRT. They're obviously working on, upgrading the GO lines and all of those things.
Yeah.
So they are making these inroads.
Yeah, and when there's new developing communities, like they are putting GO trains in them.
That's right. And so for these developments, what we really haven't seen before and what we're seeing now is tons of incentives. Like, the government actually has on different levels been working behind the scenes, working with developers to reduce developmental charges and make things easier for them. I just saw news the other day of a little bit of a bailout for new rental-only buildings in Toronto, which they are quite important to help fix the rental issues that we've had in the past. And, there is a lot more government support now. Of course, this is a question mark with the federal election coming up. What's going to change?
What does that look like?
Yeah. But essentially, there are a lot more incentives. There is the new first-time home buyer stuff with new construction or considerably renovated places. Now, you get a little dispensation in GST, for example. A little discount there.
Yeah.
There are programs that are coming out, and of course, again, apart from immigration, housing affordability. That's on the ticket.
Yeah.
For this election.
Definitely.
So we'll see how that goes.
The name on everybody's lips.
Yeah. But, it's a good position to be in if you're looking at new construction, just because there's a ton of incentives. And builders are kind of bending over a little bit backwards to get you in the door.
Yeah.
Because like 2 or 3 years ago, it was the complete opposite.
Oh, yeah.
It was, you give me the deposit today.
Yeah.
Kind of like what we did.
Yeah, no,
this is what you're getting. This is what you're getting. This is the unit you're getting.
Yeah.
You either want this unit or you don't want anything at all.
And tell me now.
And get the deposit tomorrow.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's
gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I don't like that either. I think there should be like a happy middle ground.
Oh, there has to be.
Yeah.
I mean, we did go to the sales center afterwards?
After we put the deposit in.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, but you had the brochures and you had all the information.
Yeah, of course.
A year ahead. So we were kind of ready.
I was in the know.
You're in the know.
Yeah.
Okay, this is kind of segueing to investors as well. Assignments, condos, rents are still fairly high historically. They are still coming down. The prices, the assignments, people are taking hits on them now. So there are opportunities there again.
Yeah.
Of course, there are still some risks involved of delays or maybe projects not being completed as quickly. But again, this is a whole conversation we need to have with you.
Yeah, we've gone through the assignment thing.
We're just glossing over this, and it's really dependent on person to person. Again, if you wanted to speak to us about that, you can. This brings us to the Downsizers. This is an interesting one, Jess.
Yeah? Tell us.
Because, it really depends on where they want to go. Do they want to get a condo? If they're downsizing into a condo.
Or if they're moving out of the city.
Yeah, or if they're moving out of the city. It's similar to the upgraders in that, you're going to take a little bit of a hit. Compared to, but only in comparison to, 2 years ago.
Sure, and if you bought your house in 1974...
That's right. I mean, that's the difference there too, right?
There's a big difference.
Yeah.
If you bought your house in 2022, don't sell it, probably.
Yeah. So the benefit really is on the buy side, exactly depending on what you're selling as well. It's, again, really hard to kind of generalize it for everyone. But if you have one of these specific pockets where people want to move,
Yeah. No, I mean, family homes are definitely still selling. There's growing families all the time that need homes in nice suburbs with nice backyards, in good school areas. Those type of properties always sell.
And here's the other factor. How much do you care about your family?
That's a question you can answer internally.
Yeah.
Maybe don't scream it out loud.
Yeah. Maybe keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
But my point is, maybe value comes in the fact that you are able to help out a family member, a niece, a nephew, a son or a daughter, someone that's maybe trying to get into the market for their first property. And okay, maybe you're taking a little bit of a hit. Maybe you're not getting as much as you could in a year or 2 years' time, for example, or, whatever that ends up being. But you can take a little bit of money and help them out. That's completely up to you. Again, how much do you care about your family? And this is just becoming more and more common. Realistically, as Jess said, if you've owned your home since the 70s or the 80s or even the 90s, there's a pretty good chance you've paid off your mortgage. And really, you've made that money just by not moving, essentially.
Yeah. Just regular growth.
That's it. And so, there are ways, and we're really going to see this. We've talked about this before, this massive transfer of wealth. It's tough as a first-time home buyer.
Yeah, it really is.
This $500,000 is like a normalized amount, Jess.
Yeah, I know.
And, okay, if we break it down into mortgage repayments and the kind of monthly carry, as I've put in my first-time home buyer planner, it's not crazy different from renting.
No, and that's something to understand.
And that's one of the concepts to really understand. What is the major difference here? Well, here's the thing. They need to come up with the down payment, the land transfer tax, the money for the lawyer. That's really it. That's the really big, apart from the monthly carry.
That's the hardest part, yeah.
It's the hardest carry. So that's kind of where we're at. And if you're wanting to squeeze a little bit more out of your downsize, then I would be waiting for this potential pop after the election of a bit more activity. Or there's a few people saying we're going to have to wait till the fall.
Yeah.
Which is when things could be more certain.
But if you have your eye on a certain type of area or house and you can afford to buy now and take a little less for your sale, then it may make sense. That's right.
Especially if you're looking at like a bungalow even. They're not really making bungalows anymore, Jess.
No.
Rare. Okay, so I think that wraps it up. Any final words before we make our special announcement?
No, just, every situation, every person, every buyer, every seller is different. So if you have something you want to know about your own situation, let us know.
That's it. And now, without further ado, Jessica.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell the people what your special announcement is?
No, I think you should tell everybody.
Why me?
I don't know. You're the professional announcer.
Oh, I'm the professional announcer? Well, Jessica Melissa Carrota.
Not the government name.
I'm so sorry. Jessica Carrota. Jessica Carrota. She's having a little baby. We're having a little baby.
Yeah.
Woo. And you know what? To be fair, most people have seen this news.
Yeah.
But what they haven't seen is that it's going to be a little girl.
Yeah.
A little girl. How about that for a gender announcement, Jess?
On our very, very popular podcast.
Very popular podcast. Hey, we have some people out there, diehard listeners.
Yeah. Okay, if you found out the gender from this podcast, send us a message.
Send us a message.
Please,
say,
let us
we listened
know.
to your stupid podcast.
Yeah.
I skipped all the way to the very end.
Yeah, just to find.
Yeah. And if you, I like clues and stuff like that. If you were to see any pictures recently, Jess has like pink nails. And there's all these little clues. Yeah. But anyways, there are still a lot of people that don't know the gender yet. And
now you know.
And now
as
you know.
A faithful listener to the podcast.
Amazing. And we're not going to take any more of your time. With that, I'm going to leave you with a message, a celebratory message, which is stay positive, guys. Maybe I could run some
mantras.
Some music behind this, like really pick up music.
Yeah.
Stay positive. Get used to uncertainty. You're only able to deal with the information you have in front of you. It could get better if you were like waiting or hesitating, but it also could get harder for you.
Yeah, and don't get discouraged by other situations, other people, what they say, what they think.
That's right.
Like if you want to move, or you want to sell, or you want whatever, it's your decision.
And you know what? I don't see in any of the media, maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's articles out there, celebrating the fact that it's so much more affordable for first-time home buyers now than it has been the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Because you know why? Because it doesn't sell newspapers,
Exactly.
Jess. Why don't, because obviously putting out that news is going to be, a little depressing for other people, for most of these, investors, but let's celebrate the wins in the market.
Yeah, there are so many opportunities,
and I'm happy because I know it's tough.
Yeah,
and I'd be happy to know that some people have a chance to get into the market, Jess.
Yeah,
and join the real estate journey.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks so much for listening.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. Again, if you have any questions, hicksonrealestateteam@gmail.com. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on the Instagrams, on the Facebooks, and even the Meta-owned TikTok. Oh, did I just say Meta-owned?
Yeah, we don't.
I have a feeling that it is now. Okay,
Conspiracy
guys.
Corner.
Conspiracy Corner. That's our next podcast episode. Guys, thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.